The United States' complex relationship with immigration has always been around for the entire 250 years of nationhood. Let's take it back to 1790 when the first Naturalization Act was passed. This act granted citizenship to free white males that lived in the United States for more than 2 years and had good moral character. This was important because, as we know, this was during the time of chattel slavery. So they had to distinguish that slaves were not people, they were property. And then in 1795, they amended the Naturalization Act of 1790 because native born Americans were upset about the amount of citizenship that was being granted to people coming into the United States. This amendment extended the amount of time required living in the U.S. to become a citizen, and it also required you to pledge an oath of allegiance to the United States. That's where that process come from when you go through naturalization today. And it also granted citizenship to children of naturalized citizens. So that's where that process came from today. So towards the end of the 18th century, they're openly welcoming immigrants because of expansion needs, while self-proclaimed nativists are treating these people with suspicion. And then we go into the 19th century where it kind of like turns up the dial. Now we're in the 19th century, and Mexico and America has a war, the Mexican American War, and the land annexed from California and Texas and that region from Mexico, the people that live there are considered American citizens based off of the treaty that they signed. At the same time, immigration over the Pacific is now boosting up with a lot of Chinese immigrants coming in. In 1875, they passed the Page Act, which discriminated against Asian women and left the decision of whether or not these women would be granted entry into the United States up to someone that they called a consular general at the port of entry. And the Page Act laid the groundwork for the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. This particular act came about because white Americans alleged that Chinese immigrants were coming to the United States and taking low paying jobs, which was pricing them out of work. So the Chinese Exclusion Act bans um, Chinese laborers from entering into the United States for a period of 10 years. That's how long the ban was supposed to be. But if you know anything about it, you know that the ban was not lifted until the 1940s. In 1892, when the ban was supposed to be lifted, they went in, extended the ban, and required that Chinese immigrants living in the United States had to walk around with their identification papers that prove that they had a legal right to be here, and if they did not, they faced deportation. Does that not sound familiar? Now we're going to jump to the 20th century, where in 1917, another immigration act was passed, and this time they banned all Asian countries with the exception of Japan and the Philippines. The Philippines at that time was a U.S. territory, so their people were considered non-citizen nationals, and Japan had this gentleman's agreement where they stopped anyone from leaving Japan to come to the United States altogether. So they didn't have to ban people from Japan from coming in because Japan wasn't letting their people go out. And now that they had gotten rid of all of the Asians with the exclusion of Japan and the Philippines, they was like, you know what? We're going to limit everybody else. So they enacted quotas based off of nations, and their quotas was based off of the 1890 census. Mind you, all of the Chinese were gone. The Asians are banned. So they were only allowing white immigrants. The Great Depression rolls around, war rolls around, and they're like, these quotas really ain't working for us. We're going to go in and fix it with the Immigration and Naturalization Act of 1954, but they didn't lift the quotas all of the way. They had to go back in 1965 and amend it again. And That's where more modern immigration policy starts to like change, and I'll end here.